Started. So to keep things on schedule, the first plenary will be in here. My name is Don Mitchell. I'm a city councillor and on the Housing Advisory Committee and the Environment Advisory Committee that are two of the hosts for this conference. It's a City of Moose Jaw SciAst affair, and this is a great facility provided by SciAst for this event, free of charge, and much appreciated as a co-sponsor, and great backup support on technical and all of the requirements we need. So to start us off, I'm going to call on Mayor Hagel to bring some welcoming remarks on behalf of the City of Moose Jaw.
There, thanks, Johnny. Okay. Maybe if you just bring it down to a normal height here, those tall guys, they always speak with high voices too, I think, something like that. Anyhow, thanks very much, Councillor Mitchell and friends. It's very nice to be here. I see MLA Greg Lawrence here as well. Welcome. Good to have you here. And the campus director, Peter Lapointe, who I think will also be bringing greetings. This is kind of an exciting couple of days, I think, that are ahead of us, building on the very successful forum that was held about a year ago. And I want to say, first of all, congratulations to SciAst and to the Environment Advisory Committee of the city, together with CMHC, who have partnered together to bring this very informative and, I think, future-looking couple of days to us. We're going to have access to people who aren't just thinking about it, but are doing it. And I think, you know, today's, as we gather together today and tomorrow, when we think about what we're going to learn and share in terms of information, to put it into a context, there was a time when people, I think, concluded that you could either be you could be green or you could be economic, but you had to make your choice. And what this forum is all about is pointing out that the modern day reality, not the dream, but the reality, is that you can be green and economic, and that is really the way of the future as we look at options for efficient and effective use of energy, and particularly as it relates to the world of housing. It's becoming an increasingly important principle to people, not only locally and not only nationally, but around the world, that we look for ways to be green and sustainable as we discover that the way we treat our planet has a lot to do with the kind of future that we can expect for ourselves, and even more important than that, our children and our children's children as we look ahead. So I want to wish everybody an invigorating couple of days, that this will be a time in which you will discover some new ideas, that you will make some new contacts, and that you'll also find some things that will contribute to the way that you can proceed in your work or in your residential plans personally. And once again, thanks to SciAst for hosting, for providing the facility here, and some of the expertise that goes along. A special welcome to all of the presenters who have come, including several have come from out of town and including out of province, to be with us here. So welcome to you all, and have a great couple of days.
Well, thank you, Mayor Hagel. And I was amiss not mentioning earlier the role of CMHC as another hosting partner, and that brought a lot of resources to this event. Maybe it didn't matter that I didn't mention it because nobody could hear me anyway. The mic wasn't on. You're supposed to wave your arms when the system isn't working. So again, welcome this morning. There'll be lots of people joining us through the day because there's a number of specialized sessions. People will be coming in and out. It's going to be a good working day, and I now call on our host on the site here, Peter Lapointe, to bring greetings from SciAst.
Thank you very much, Don. Ladies and gentlemen, special guests, Greg Lawrence, our local MLA, Mayor Hagel, thank you very much for the support of SciAst and Palliser Campus in particular over the years. I would like to welcome you to the 2012 Green and Sustainable Energy Housing Forum and Fair. On behalf of our SciAS President and CEO, Dr. Bob McCullough, we at Palliser Campus are honored to be a partner in hosting this prestigious event, along with the City of Moose Jaw, Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation, and the Palliser Campus Green Group. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all the organizers, volunteers, and presenters who have worked hard in putting this forum together. Special thanks to Jan and Ron for their leadership. SciAS walks the talk in making our campuses green, with each campus having their own green group to promote initiatives in the area of green. Again, I hope you have a great time at our campus and enjoy the presenters at this great conference. Have a great day. Just a couple of housekeeping items I was supposed to mention. The cafeteria is open all day till 3 o'clock. Plus, there's a short order. Our students will be cooking lunch and breakfast, I think it's till 10:30, over at the short order, which is on this side of the building, in the cafeteria. Behind the cafeteria is a smoking area outside the doors, behind the campus, if you do happen to smoke. The washrooms are just outside to the right. As you go outside the cafeteria to the right, the ladies is straight ahead, and the men's washroom is to the left. If you get an opportunity, you want to tour the campus, by all means, you can drop into any of the areas and take a look at the state-of-the-art equipment, and our students are working in the classrooms or in the labs. And if you get lost, you can kind of get a hold of any one of us, and we'll put you on the track again to where the cafeteria is. Well, welcome to the campus again, and have a great conference.
Thank you. One of the working sponsors, as well as the city's Environment Committee, I'll call on Kristen to come up and just say a few words on behalf of that group that are part of the volunteer force here.
Well, I'd like to say welcome to everyone. The EAC is really excited about this year, as we were last year. We're looking forward to this being a great forum, a great opportunity for everyone to get their message out. We're hoping that in here, of course, is going to be all the speakers, but if you do decide that you'd like to maybe meet up with one of the speakers, and you can set a time, there's actually a whiteboard at the front door that you can write down. The other room here just beside us is set aside for just, maybe 10 o'clock. You want to meet up with someone, and everyone else can maybe join in a little debate and conversation with anyone. If you guys do decide to set up anything like that, try and write it on the whiteboard. If you can set up a schedule, that'd be great. Other than that, we'd really like, this is going to be a great year. We've, Jan's done a fantastic job getting everyone here, and let's hope that it goes as well as it's seeming to start out. So, thanks, guys.
Okay, I also want to acknowledge the work that Jan Radwanski has done, and maybe ask him to come forward and set up any of the other logistics of the day. There are at least one concurrent session today, so we'll have to sort that out in terms of room space. And anything else that there's question marks around, Jan will be the person to go to, because that's why I introduced him now, so you know who to talk to.
Okay. Thanks very much. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see such a good turnout here at 8:30. So help yourself to the muffins and the coffee, and as the day unfolds, we don't have a concurrent session until 4 o'clock, so all the sessions today are in here until 4 o'clock. And then at 4 o'clock, we're going to use Sarah's dining room and this room for the concurrent session. And then tomorrow, we have more concurrent sessions taking place. So just check the schedule, and given that it's a free event too, we're not sure in terms of the turnout, how people are going to come and go. So we may have to make some last-second changes with our rooms and to configure them to other alterations. So again, thanks to SciAS. It's great to have such a good partner in our nice community of Moose Jaw to work with, and there's huge potential here to look towards the future and try and create green and sustainable communities. And having a campus and students, it's great to see all the students out here today. And we can work towards, you're going to hear some great stories today from people like from Cam Dupuis from CMHC, what's happening across Canada here. He's going to start us off right away here in terms of what's taking place in Canada. And then we have Trevor and Philip from Ontario and from Alberta, who's going to tell us also about some recent trends and things that are happening in their cities. So welcome, and if you need anything, if I can help you out, just hunt me down here in the next couple days. But thanks very much. So we'll be starting here right away at 9 o'clock with Cam Dupuis from CMHC. So help yourself to coffee and muffins. Was there anything else, Don, you wanted to say?
No.
Okay. So yeah, and there's some free prizes we're giving away. Sask Energy has a great energy basket out there, and we have a composter that was donated by the city of Moose Jaw, so free draws at the front there, so make sure we have some tote bags there as well, and thanks very much for coming.
This is on, right? Yes, good morning. I'm Reg Forbes, and I'm an instructor here at SciAS in architecture, and I'm here to introduce Cam Dupuis from CMHC, and he's your first presenter on Equilibrium. Cam and I go back a number of years, not a lot of years, not as many years as he's been with CMHC, which is 24, which his bio says. But we've worked on a few projects together, and it's been great. CMHC is a great source for information for our students. Graduates from our program have gone on to work for CMHC and have been very valuable in that organization. Just talking to Cam a minute ago, it's very interesting when a concept or an idea or a thought or a conversation turns into something solid, right? Something that really happens. And so in May, I'd finished working and I'd left from my farm and I was up there. A phone call came in from Cam, and I was out just about to go fishing, and he was just about to go biking. He likes his motorcycle. He would have liked to ridden it today. But anyway, he said, I want to come to Saskatchewan and spread the word for CMHC, and what can we do here? And it so happened that the city of Moose Jaw wanted to do a symposium on housing, so the two worked together very well, and so we came together, and here we are today, and this is wonderful. It's really wonderful when things work out, and so thankful, Cam, for bringing all the information and speakers with you and things like that. So without delay, I'll turn this over to Cam, and he's going to talk to you about Equilibrium project across Canada.
Well, thank you, Rich. Appreciate that. Yeah, it would have been nice to take the bike out here today, but I'm telling you, it would have been a little snappy, no doubt about that. I know, we just mentioned it to him just before the game there last Saturday or Sunday, the Super Bowl. It was so nice. I mean, I am from Calgary, originally from Winnipeg. So I'm used to the weather, it's not a problem, but you know, it's just so nice to be able to say, yeah, I've been out on the road like in February, you know, and just rub the noses of all those who are in 3 feet of snow to say, yeah, I'm out there. But thank you so much for coming. I have to thank the city and also SciAS and all the supporters, and of course you students for coming, but thank you so much for getting CMHC out here. We really, with the work that we do, and the side that I'm in is the research and information transfer side. With all the research dollars that we spend and all the time and effort that everyone out there does in research and pulling this information together, it's great to get the opportunities to get that information out to everyone. And so, I don't know, most folks, when I look at CMHC, how many have heard of CMHC, first of all? That's pretty good. Okay, great. And what does CMHC stand for?
That's Peter.
Peter, yeah. Peter. Where's Peter?
Housing Corporation.
Pardon me?
Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation.
You said it right the first time. Canada Mortgage and Housing. Your second time you said Canadian. You had it right the first time. Yeah, because it was Central. It used to be Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation eons ago. But anyways, it's not Canadian Mental Health Corporation. So, yeah, and of course most people really recognize CMHC as a mortgage loan insurer. You know, when you want to go buy a house with, say, 5% or 10% down, it allows Canadians to get into home ownership much sooner than saving 25%. So most folks really understand CMHC as that side of it, more on the finance side of it. And so it's good to know, and it's actually good to be out here to even promote the research side, because of course we have vast amount of information. We hold probably the largest technical library in Canada at our we call it MJEAC, Canadian Housing Information Centre, out of Ottawa, where you can access that online. You could go online and order some publications. They can lend it to you. You can send it back. And of course, we have tons and tons and tons of free publications you can download and or order in 1-800 number. So I'm doing a little bit of a little spiel here on some of the things that you can take advantage of with CMHC. But to move along, I'll ask this other question. Besides seeing something on the board here, how many have heard of equilibrium? Yeah, a few. That's good. Yeah, equilibrium actually is here. Where's my? Oh, here we go. Equilibrium is a project that we started a few years ago, and we came to realize, of course, that especially with greenhouse gases going on, the amount of energy that housing consumes throughout the country, throughout the year, and of course what's going on with the existing housing stock, the energy pigs, I hate to use those words, but the energy pigs that we're living in, we have to basically smarten up and really buckle up and build something that will last, that will be healthy, and that'll be extremely super energy efficient. And there's no reason why this can't be done. It's not impossible. Many builders and many designers and everybody out there say there's no way you can achieve these kind of targets. And we're not only achieving them, we're even going better and beyond even net zero. Although, you know, we have to realize that there are the challenges. Is it practical? Where's it most cost effective? So then this is where now, after actually doing it and making it happen, that we can then extract that information and that data from performance monitoring and share that information. What I'm going to talk a little bit about today, of course, is the equilibrium, the entire demonstration initiative, how it sort of came about and really where we're all at. And I'm not going to get too much into the labeling programs. I just want to explain a little bit about equilibrium versus some of the other stuff. And then I'll have, we'll focus in a little bit on a few of the different projects. One of the things, if I have time, one of the things is also to talk about flex housing, how it's incorporated also within the design work. And it's not so much to do with energy efficiency, but it's also to do with affordability, adaptability, and accessibility, and one of the most important ones. And if I have time, also is to look even, for example, what are they doing in the north? Because if they're doing something in the north, what can be applied down in the southern part of the country? I mean, we can get just as cold down here than it is up in the Yukon. And just a little bit on the cost benefits. So I talked a little bit about the housing finance side of things a little earlier, talk about mortgage loan insurance and some of the different products. Well, also CMHC has an international division, which we help Canadian manufacturers export their product worldwide. And it really has been working very good. And also, CMHC is a world leader when it comes down to the finance side and mortgage loan insurance. So we also have our folks go to different countries to teach them how Canada gets our stuff done, how we help out with housing their people, well, how we house Canadians. And the information transfer, I quickly mentioned about that. We also have community development, so we have a representative in every province because, of course, we also, being a Federal Crown Corporation, have to ensure that we provide the services and the representation from CMHC at all levels of government. So we have community development folks. We have Jackie Bevel. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to be here today. She's out of Regina. She looks after Saskatchewan for us. And then the other side is the Aboriginal housing, where the Canadian or the federal dollars are actually channeled through CMHC for the housing aspect of building homes on First Nations. Of course, it's not a representative of all the housing. They do finance themselves, and there are other tools for financing housing on First Nations. However, through Section 95 of the National Housing Act, the dollars flow in through CMHC, and we help administer that. Okay. So we'll get on with Equilibrium, it's Sustainable Housing Demonstration Initiative. Where we're really at with this, it's a national residential build design demonstration initiative developed by CMHC. So what it does is it brings the private and public sectors together and also provides a vision for sustainable housing and also communities. As I mentioned right now, I'm going to talk about the housing aspect this morning, And this afternoon I'll be on for about 15 minutes, mind you, but it'll just kind of give you a bit of a focus on sort of the next stage, and that's equilibrium communities and how it's integrated, how the two integrate, and how important that is. And of course we'll have Philip Wong brought in. I got him in from Toronto, and he's got a fantastic project to talk about later on, and that's one of the equilibrium projects too. After following me too, we'll also have Trevor Gamlin, also from Avalon, that has one of the projects. I'll just kind of touch on it a little bit too. So the idea here is designing low impact, affordable, healthy, highly energy and resource efficient housing, resulting in low to no housing related environmental impacts on water, land and air. Also facilitating public demonstrations, performance monitoring, and also in reporting. So these units, once they're complete, part of the agreement that we have with each team is to allow us to have, say, at least a 6-month window so that we can do public and industry tours. People can come in and visit the homes and learn, see, feel, touch, smell, hopefully not kick, and they can see and learn. And also after that, even once they're sold and occupied, then we can actually do some performance monitoring of these units, and we can share that data and that information with everyone. So there's 5 core principles that we really looked at on this. It was that comfort, occupant health and comfort. Energy efficiency, of course, is one of the main, one of the biggest targets, but also resource conservation, reducing the environmental impact that it would take in construction and design of these units, and also affordability. And affordability is a real challenge because we know when you're especially making prototypes, you might call them so, is that it costs a little bit of money to put these together. And I know the challenge to say, well, let's try to build market housing. Well, when you're trying to put pencil to paper and come up with designs and so on, the first ones are definitely going to cost a lot more money. But you'll also learn from these so that you can sharpen your pencil as time goes on and actually be able to reduce the cost more so. And it'll actually then, especially at that point in time, it'll actually become a lot more affordable for the homeowners at that point. So as far as the reporting is concerned, you can go online. You can see at the very bottom here, there's CMHC's website. It's very easy, www.cmhc.ca. You can go into the middle section. Well, first of all, français ou anglais, you choose one of those to go into. But in the very center section, in the middle, it says sustainability or building and design. One of the two is going to bring you into equilibrium, both housing and also in communities. And you can see the profiles of each and every of these projects. So you can look at the standard profiles, and then they can start bringing them down to some of the components of them. We also have, I set up a little table over at the demonstration area, and we have some of the profiles of some of the features of them. And I do, because especially we have Trevor out here, I definitely want to ensure that we had almost everything that we had in print so far of some of the different features the Avalon Discovery 3 project has at this point in time online. So there could be more copies. I saved a few for tomorrow. In case it runs out, you can come and see me and I'll get you some more. But regardless, is that this is all available online. You can download and so on. I didn't want to kill too many trees. After all, this is sustainability, right? So the research on highly insulated building envelopes, looking at energy efficiency, also durability, because durability all falls part of affordability. If you're going to need to replace your house every 80 or 70 years, 60 years, 80 years, well, is that really considered to be affordable? If you can build a house that can last a lot longer than that, well, guess what? That basically goes to the bottom line and put into the equation towards affordability, stretching it over time. And then, of course, looking at construction details. Different types of construction, whether it's double wall construction, structurally insulated panels, ICF, insulated concrete floors. There's many different types of concrete methods used. And so we're able to sort of dabble into a few different areas and learn as we go along the pros and the cons of some of these different systems. Local research also on embodied energy. Well, what does it take to get the materials in? Where does it come in? Does it all come from a boat in a container to come all the way across? Well, first of all, is the material made in North America, shipped to China, manufactured in components, and then shipped back over here, put into trucks to make it all the way down to Moose Jaw? Now we talk about embodied energy. How much does that actually cost by the time you finally get it here to the door? And looking at some possibilities of using local materials, using local manufacturing, local products, and looking at the cost benefits. Also, what does it do to the economy? It helps stimulate, and it creates more jobs. And also basically support technology roadmap for sustainable housing. So where is it going to go from here? So today, when we're looking at equilibrium housing, we want to get this started, but the thing is that it all integrates. It all integrates into communities. And the thing is that if you can look at designing communities now, that'll actually they could actually set, say, the parameter, or raise the bar to say, look, we want all the houses built in this community to be rated at no less than, I'll just take a figure, say no less than 85, the Inner Guide for Houses rating, for example. Then you've raised the bar higher than even, for example, the R2000 specification. And the entire community can also then save a lot of money on the fact that they don't necessarily have to put in so much infrastructure. If you look at, for instance, how much does it cost to put stormwater management system in, when you can use bioswales, retentions, and retention ponds, and different design, and sort of landscape design to help reduce the actual infrastructure costs. Well, what does that do? I mean, we know that 2x4s cost money, but really, what really is a lot of money too is the land and the infrastructure that goes into place. So if you can help reduce that, then that actually contributes towards the affordability, but also keeping it to natural environment. And avoiding catastrophes. If you basically build in a lot of areas, in say older areas where the old storm systems just can't keep up anymore because they've been added more towards drainage, where you get big downpours and the systems just won't handle it anymore. Of course, then the cities might suffer flooded basements and so on. But if you kind of keep things natural, people will actually take advantage of capturing that water, using it within their own households, using it to water their lawns. It will substantially decrease the volumes that are actually being thrown down into the storm sewer systems. So okay, I'll just move over just a little bit on the some of the different building programs that are out there. There's a lot of them. I mean, there's Built Green. That has been pushing its way over towards the west. We have, in the Yukon, there's a green home, the super green home. Hopefully I can even talk about that. Power Smart in Manitoba, there's LEED. So there's many different rating and labeling systems. Or there's also R2000, I can't forget that, the one that we got listed on the very bottom there. Equilibrium is not that. So I just want to clarify that. Equilibrium really is the name of this initiative and the name of this concept. So I, working for CMHC, could say, yeah, well, we can build an equilibrium home, but it's really not a certification. So if you build an equilibrium house, it's not like you're going to get an equilibrium sticker on the house or on the window. It's, for instance, like Energy Stars, another program that's more so in Ontario. Well, when you buy appliances, there'll be an Energy Star sticker that'll determine or specify what type of power it'll consume and so on. Some of these other projects will recognize that. So that's about it for that one. So I'll get on to the actual equilibrium housing projects themselves. When we're looking at targeting the performance proposed by all the teams, we asked that they try to meet a net zero objective, close to that. So net zero, of course, producing as much energy as it consumes throughout the year. So that way there, in certain times of the year, you're producing energy, say through photovoltaic panels, is going into the grid, and other times you're consuming. So hopefully at the end of the year it shouldn't cost you anything. So that's one of the targets. And there's a lot of work that goes into design and construction details to try to achieve those targets. It's not easy, but the thing is that it's not impossible. For example, if you look at the national average, if you see on the chart here, the national average, get this angle, here we go, national average, when you look at appliances, major appliances, water heating and space heating, if you see on the blue, the space heating it takes for the national average house. Now, if you look at the national average in our 2000 in the center column, and then also now we're looking at the equilibrium house. And so you could tell right there, you know, in kilowatts per square meter as to how much energy that an equilibrium house would actually use, which is actually very little. So the estimated average for 12 homes, building envelope inner-guide rating of roughly 86. Total energy modified inner-guide rating of 99. So that's the energy side. So you got to realize that there's the actual building component, but how much energy are you actually going to produce from the home? And then you add that to the actual building envelope rating, and you'll come up to figures to say 99 on this one here. And here again, this is sort of averaging. It says here averaging for 12 homes. This data was actually collected a little while ago, because the first run, I guess I didn't mention that to begin with, is that when we actually set up the competition, we send out to everyone across the country, and we had over, I think it was 75 or 77 applicants that came in. And out of there, we brought it all the way down to 12. Now, that was great, but then after time came, we realized, well, wait a minute, this is a demonstration project, and unfortunately, British Columbia and the East Coast and the North really had, none of them actually unfortunately qualified. And the thing was, it was pretty strict. When the door closed on that time, that was just the way it is. I think BC, I just slid their envelope under the door just like about 12 o'clock in 1 minute, but it had already closed. So we realized, wait a minute, we really need to try to get some demonstration projects out there. So we opened it again, just for those areas. And so British Columbia got 2 and the East Coast got 1, and unfortunately the North didn't. However, we still have a good story to tell about the North, so it's not like they were omitted altogether. So now altogether we actually have 15 projects, but this data is based on the 12. So we're looking at the ceiling insulation of R65, walls of R52, air tightness at least at 3/4 of an air. Changes per hour, and then also the average floor area of 172 square meters. Okay, how's everybody like this one? Yeah, this is the Riverdale project. This is actually built in Edmonton. This is a side-by-side, and it's a very unique project. We really learned a lot from this one here. It was definitely a challenge for the builders and the consultants and everyone to design the building. One of the really cool challenges were, if you actually look at the overhang for the doors, you can see one is actually got a little bit of a round to the front, and the other one has a little peak to the front. Can anybody explain why? It's close. That's close, because the thing was, for them to get approval from the city to get the permit to build a side-by-side in this Riverdale area, they wanted character. They wanted places that just don't look the same. So they were able to get their permit because of that. Yeah. So as you can tell here, what you see on the very top is an array of photovoltaics. Then you have hot water, solar. And this is a project where they use double wall construction. I don't know if I have. Yeah, there's another photo there. They have double wall construction, quad pane windows in the north and the west. They have triple pane windows in the south and east. They have in-floor heat in the basement. They have fan coil from the that's heating the house too from the solar. Hot water. They have a 17,000 liter cistern in which they're using to store the excess energy that the solar hot water panels are producing, because of course they don't need it all. And I don't want to use the words overkill. They know it. It was actually really cool to see them implement all of these different strategies and different designs. But then they realized at the end, of course, they don't need all of this stuff. Because I remember I was doing a tour in the middle of February. It was almost this time of the year. I think it was 2 years ago, I guess. No, maybe 3 years ago. And anyways, the solar systems, the photovoltaics, none of that was still connected. It was installed, but they still had not connected. And all they had was a little 1,500 watt heater, construction heater in the basement. And that was heating the house. So you could pretty much almost heat this house with what they say is sort of equivalent to 4 toasters. That's how much energy you really only need. So the question here, though, is that now that it's all built, and we say, yeah, we're always learning as we go along, you ask yourself, is it worth to spend thousands of dollars for all the stuff that they put on the roof? How long would it take in order to recover your investment? Many, many years. And of course, all the other gadgets that go along with it. And so we learn as we go. But the really good story about this, they're also into their 4th generation of housing, where to the point right now where they're taking more advantage of passive solar energy, and I'll continue to say this, good building envelope, good airtight building envelope, and that is pretty much going to take care of a lot of your issues right now. And then it's going to be pretty difficult after, when you can actually heat a house with very, very little energy, to then justify why you need all these fancy systems. Not to say that you can't, you can still get them net zero ready, rough them in, and then later on, depending upon how the cost of energy goes, then you can add on easily. Yeah, and this one here, you can also see, you're looking at accessibility, the way the walkways are going up, and the way that they have the landscape design. They hardly have it really, they hardly have any grass. A lot of it is little gardens and different berries and different types of vegetables that they're actually growing on site. And of course, they're using their own rainwater collection. Here's a double wall construction going up, and then of course this you'll see. I guess the one photo you see here, just in the very top over here, about the windows, about taking advantage, of course, of passive solar energy. They on the inside in the living room area, they actually had a concrete wall dividing the living room and dining area to the hallway in the back. So here again, now we have thermal storage in the wall. To explain a little bit more, you have the active solar and water space heating system. So very efficient flat plate solar thermal collectors, 7 collectors per unit. The vertical tilt to eliminate the winter and snow cover, and also maximize the winter gain and reflected snow as well. So even reflecting off the snow, you also have that extra energy bouncing off into the panels. I mentioned that 17,000 liter water storage in the basement. And there's also a 15 kilowatt electric resistance heater as a backup. So it's grid connected, so there's no battery bank. I don't think there's any project we did with Equilibrium that actually used battery banks, because in order to really achieve net zero effectively, you need to be connected to the grid. Use the grid as your bank. There was 2 projects that were built in Alberta, and Trevor will be talking about the other one, the Avalon Discovery 3. Touch on that in a second. This is the other one that was actually built in Red Deer. This one here is built by Laban. This is the Chess project. So let's see what I have for photos in this one. Okay, so this one here, as you can see, as you drive by, you will see on the very top your collectors. You have your photovoltaics, also hot water. And they have some really neat features in this one. Of course, they got the hot water radiant in-floor heat in the basement. This one here is built with SIPs, or structurally insulated panels. They also did a structurally insulated panel foundation. And one of the lessons that they kind of learned in that one is that the engineer designing the foundation for the SIP manufacturer had approved the design of the foundation, and I suspect there were some potential conflicts between the engineers, and the builder engineer had recommended that they add on some lateral bracing, because I guess there was fear that maybe it wouldn't hold. So there was a little bit of a controversy going on there. So in the end, they ended up adding some additional bracing to the inside, which then gave them additional space to add more insulation so that they could cover that up. So, you know, you kind of learn as you go, and so there's lessons learned in that. And of course, that increased the construction cost, but I think they might, next time along, next generation, they'll look at using different construction methods on that. But I was there also when they did the blower door test before putting in the drywall. And the poly was pulling off quite a bit because of the fact that there were a lot of leakage going between some of the different areas where the SIPs, especially in the corners, the SIP panels were connecting. And a few other areas. That's why I'm a strong believer in every unit. It doesn't matter whether you're doing a complete retrofit on an existing or building a brand new house. Blower door testing, to me, should be absolutely mandatory, because that is one of the biggest areas in which that you're going to be losing energy, is basically through all the holes in the walls and the ceilings and everywhere. Plug up all your holes to begin with, and that's a good start. It's like walking out the door with your jacket completely open, or you want to button it up tight. Well, the idea here is that if you button it up really tight, you're going to save a lot of energy, and it doesn't really cost much. It's just it's just mostly caulking and poly and staples and a few things. It's not a lot of money, or spray foams and so on. Some of the really neat features, though, too, in this one here is that you'll see in this photo. This is actually here again. It's a wall where you can it's more of a thermal storage. But you'll see some of these, it looks like little bookshelves along the top. And really what it is daylight goes through there, through the hallway in the back, and then behind that wall is the master bedroom. And in the master bedroom, it also has frosted glass. So it just allows natural daylight to come in through the real sunny side, in through to the shady side, into the master bedroom. Very simple. It looks fantastic. You would never think that that's what it's all for. But here again, it saves daylight. Or it doesn't save daylight, it saves electricity. This one here is the Minto project in Quebec. I think I might have another slide. It's the Inspiration Home. It features highly insulated building envelope, tri-pane low E argon filled windows. It has a sophisticated solar HRV ventilation system. Of course, every one of them has to have an HRV. There's really no way out of that. It's pretty standard. Specific site layout and design, solar thermal and PV systems, and produce more energy than it actually consumes annually. So this is actually the back of the unit. So, of course, I'm going to bring it back here this way here. If you look at the unit, of course, a lot of people basically don't like the idea of seeing a lot of visible panels. Like, for instance, if you go back to the Riverdale project, when you were walking down the street or driving by, one of the first things that really stick out is all the panels. And to some people, they think it's okay, but a lot of people don't really like that. They want something that just looks conventional, traditional. So in this case here, they're not hiding it, but they just put it in the back. And of course, you're looking at orientation. That's perfect for this because, of course, the south side is where you want all this. And let me back up here. So then here you have your photovoltaics. And then below that, you have your hot water. And then if you look on both sides of the dormer, then they basically slid in. These are preheaters. They'll pre-warm the air before getting into your HRV system. And you also have you have gray water or your rainwater collection systems in here. One of the really neat features they put in here is you see on the very top, right here, that's a light switch. And what color is that? Same color as this forum. This is a green switch. In the green switch, basically what it does, you'll see plugs, and of course we've all learned about phantom power. You got all of your Your computers, your phone chargers, everything all plugged into the walls all day long. And even if you plug in your cell phone into the wall and you just basically disconnect it every day from your cell phone, those even all of those little transformers are actually sucking a little bit of juice. Even your TVs, like instant on. I mean, I don't know, some of you might be a little older that might remember the old TVs where you used to turn them on and it used to take about a minute or two before they finally slowly fire up. Well, those are the old tube TVs. Well, I mean, they came up with this instant on. Isn't that fantastic? You push it on, poof, your TV's on like almost right away. That was a miraculous idea to come up with such a wonderful thing. But the thing is, was this transistors, everything inside that TV, it's always actually glowing. It's actually always on, but very little. That's always sucking power. And so what this really does, the switch, is as you walk out, turn that switch off, and all that stuff shuts down. You save at least $250 a year in energy just by turning that off on the way out the door. So they have one in the entrance. They actually have one in the master bedroom in case you're actually finally crashed and you're ready to go to bed. You realize, oh dear, did I turn that off? No, you just hit the switch and you're done. So it's a really neat feature to have in the home. The Avalon Discovery 3. I'm not going to steal all of Trevor's story on the home, but it's beautiful. If you look at this one here, I have to mention is that comparison here again. I don't want to shoot down Riverdale because they did a wonderful job on their project, but if you drive by this home, you will never tell that this is actually sort of almost a net zero house. You can never tell that it has all these beautiful features in this house as you drive by. But it's an awesome house. I'll just kind of quickly mention a few things about the solar electric panels that are actually built right into the roof. You can't even tell. You don't see panels. It's actually built right in the roof. You see those shingles? See a little bit of a shinier area? Well, that's them. Also, solar hot water panels. It has no basement. It's slab on grade. And Trevor, I'm sure, is going to talk about that. That's just some of the features and the advantages of even doing so. And also automatic built-in retractable shades. And there's a lot more to that one, but I'll save it for Trevor. This is the Urban Ecology Project. This one here was actually built in Winnipeg, and it's the only project in the Equilibrium initiative that was actually done by a non-profit group, and it was a huge challenge with that. The city actually gave them the land for $1, and it's to continue on for affordable housing for some of the Winnipeg folks. This is side-by-side. On the one side, they built it as a regular R2000 spec, and WHRC, Winnipeg Housing Renewal Corp, where they have sort of set their bar to say that anything they build will be R2000, minimum anyways, to the exception of this one, which is above that, so the bar was raised substantially higher. So one side is actually R2000, the other side is more built to an equilibrium, trying to achieve net zero. You can barely see them, but on the roof you'll see the photovoltaics, also solar hot water. So the solar hot water, of course, there is to heat the hydronic in-floor heat in the basement, and also domestic hot water. The photovoltaics are there mostly to run the pumps, for just the small pump to circulate the water. And so, of course, and to produce enough energy that hopefully they're going to regain some of that to go back into the grid to offset some of the costs of energy. And that's not connected to gas. So the Riverdale project, well, actually none of these projects are connected to gas, to natural gas. And I know it really freaks out a lot of people saying, oh, can you not be connected to gas? It's like being weaned. Like you have to be connected to gas. How are you going to live? How are you going to survive if you're not? And the whole idea really is the fact that you don't only need to, because if you build the houses well and super energy efficient, just the electricity and these systems alone is enough to take care of the energy needs. But the thing is that also, if the houses are costing, say, under $500 a year to heat, and they will, why would you want to be connected to gas? Because one of the things I didn't realize too until I learned this from other folks like Trev is that there's that hidden cost in being connected to gas every month. We don't realize it's all built into your gas bill. So in a year, you're spending roughly anywhere between $350 to $500 a year just for the privilege of being connected to gas without even taking an ounce of gas out of the pipe. And if the energy costs you less than that for the entire year, why do you need to connect it to gas? Well, some folks would tell me, well, you know, what about my barbecue? I want to be connected to gas barbecue. Well, okay, I know I'm not connected to, I don't have a gas barbecue, but I mean for at home, and I love to barbecue a lot. But I'd probably say at the most, maybe in the barbecue, maybe 3 20-pound tanks, maybe a year. And what's that? I mean, I get them for maybe $15 a tank. So even if it's $25 a tank, that's $75 a year. Does that justify me spending this money to do all the hookup, to spend $500? Because I want to, because I don't want to, I want the convenience of not going to the odd service station and have it refilled. I don't know. To me, maybe I'm a little too tight. I don't know. That just doesn't make any sense. You know, I mean, there's other things. Some folks like gas stoves. Some folks like gas fireplaces. But I mean, there's some of those. But you really should look at the advantages of not being on gas. There's no real need for it. This is the Eco Haven in Calgary. This is again, you know, you can look at the roof. You'll see again more photovoltaics, more hot water, and it's heated again, you know, mostly with the sun. And would they do a water retention? They capture the rainwater. They actually have an in-ground cistern right in the very front, in the very center of the house. You'll see that little bit of snow patch. Well, actually below that they have a cistern holding all that water, but they're also using it for their toilets and so on. The other unique thing about the house, there's a lot of things about the house, but it's actually about the community. The subdivision that they're in is more of a sustainable eco type of a subdivision where they did not strip the land down. They kept the tree. As you can see, trees around there. There's actually a couple little retention ponds, the natural retention ponds. They're not disturbing any of that. You walk in off the front door and you can see the ducks swimming in the pond right not very far from them. And they really did their best to try to maintain the natural landscape. And everyone moving into that subdivision needs to meet those specific standards. And so they were really hoping that while this was being built, that there'd be you know, about 20 or 25 more of these built. It's just a little slow going, but it's coming along. And they did a beautiful job with this project. This is the Ecoterra. This is actually out in Eastman, Quebec, about an hour south of Edmonton. It's a really cool project. I remember visiting this one. And how many would believe that this is actually a modular house? This is actually prefabbed in 5 different sections and moved to the site. The photovoltaic system also has thermal recovery. The sheets of photovoltaic film are integrated in the metal roofing, so you can't really even see it. It has hot air from behind the panels is drawn to the interior distribution system. So if you look at this setup, they have, whoops, sorry. This one over here, it's actually pre-manufactured, of course, and then taking advantage of the hot air that's being produced from behind the entire system. They're actually drawing it and they bring it down into hot air tubes to heat the floor in the basement. They also built a thermal wall. I'll show you that in a second. So this whole thing is actually designed all in one unit. As you see here, and it's brought on site. And along with other manufactured homes that they produce out of the plant, they've really done a lot of studies towards this whole concept and idea. So they're really hoping that they can actually manufacture these. So anyone wanting to build their own house can build whatever they want. But if they want to buy the roof system with all of the integrated portions or systems built into it, they can just buy the roof from them and they can actually just ship it right to site. Rather than just buying trusses, it all comes together. You get a crane, pick it all up, pop it on site. This is them manufacturing that on site. It has R54 in the ceilings, R37 in the walls, 22 in the basement, and R7 underneath the slab. Other projects have a lot more than R7. They could go a little bit more than that. You can see it has retractable shades. And I remember when I was there, it was actually set up perfectly because it was there just a little afternoon. And the way with the overhang, it was set up that the shade went right to the very bottom of the living room windows, like the areas in which obviously are south facing. So there's no air conditioning required because they're taking special attention to the design features to ensure it's going to be properly shaded. So it'll reduce the heat and passive solar getting into the walls or into the home. But you can see here, this is just of course on the inside. You can see even the sun beating down on the floor. In the very middle area here, this section over here, actually that's a thermal wall. So even some of the heat from down below hitting onto that will actually capture the energy. They also have an in-house energy storage monitoring system. On my display table, I actually have some information sheets on that system. It's pretty slick. This is the site, and they built the foundation there, and then they brought in unit by unit. And what was really neat about this one is all the mechanical was actually built in one module. So all of your electrical panels, to your HRV, to your air exchange systems, water systems, everything was all into that unit. So they just basically popped it into the foundation. Once the house was all built, they just connected, plugged everything right in, and away they went. See, that was pretty quick. You know, in about 5 seconds the house was built. Yeah, so it's just a matter of a couple of days, and it was all put together, and it was done. And actually, I think we pretty much did it, I think, in the same day. All right, so this one here is the Now House. It's a really interesting one. Now, this is the only existing unit that there was as one of the Equilibrium projects. It was built in Toronto. And what was really neat about that is, well, 60 years, well now it's probably 60 to 65 years. This is a wartime house. And what's really kind of cool about this, it just happened this way. But Canada Mortgage and Housing back in the day, when it was called Central Mortgage and Housing, we first started in 1946. And the reason why Central Mortgage and Housing was created was simply to help house the veterans coming back from the Second World War. They needed housing. They needed places to stay. They needed to raise their families. And Central Mortgage and Housing hired engineers, architects, designers, people who could actually build and design these houses. And we were heavily involved in constructing these. And a lot of these ended up, of course, you see a lot of D&D houses. Who have not seen any of these out there? There's thousands and thousands of these across the country. And so it was actually kind of neat to see that that this ended up being one of the projects, because seeing how, like, we were actually the ones who actually designed these to begin with, and now here we are 60 years later looking at retrofitting these units. And what does that story tell you? I mean, if you look around, you look at the existing housing stock, I'll use those words, just energy pigs. I mean, they're basically absolutely not energy efficient, and we really need to change that. And we need to also then send the message out there that it's not impossible to retrofit these to actually make them pretty much close to net zero. Believe it or not, you could. This is now the photo before. This is actually what it looked like back in the day. And this one here was just before the renos were done. You can see that had been resided. They put a metal roof on over the years, and the retired fellow that owns the house really wanted to do a complete retrofit. He was really keen on the whole idea, so he volunteered his house to get this done. So he sort of let it go to the designers and the engineers to come up with different systems. Of course, he agreed on, and then he said, let's go for it. So the way it is right now is that on the flat roofs area, of course this is a story and a half, so you got the flat roof area, and there's R50. On the sloped area they achieved an R32. They got R33 on the walls above grade, and then below grade R25. Below grade R25, and then they installed some triple glazed windows, and then they achieved 1.5 air exchange per hour. And it's really difficult in an existing unit because, of course, you're working on the outside. They kept the inside alone. Of course, it really saves a lot of money that way, but the interior, they found that when they installed the systems and everything else, they ended up actually jackhammering the slab because the slab wasn't in very good condition. And so what they were able to do was insulate the floor at the same time, and then they put in their in-floor heat. So they installed a photovoltaic system. They also solar water for space and water heating, and they also have a heat recovery drain in the home. Those are great when you have a two-story house or a full basement, because of the fact that unfortunately, if you got just a one level, say with a slab on grade, you don't have the depth to be able to use those systems. But actually, they work quite well. So the idea in the winter, the high efficiency furnace operates only as necessary. So of course, if you are not having enough energy coming in from the sun and the hot water, then the furnace only there just to kick in as a backup. But it is a high energy efficiency furnace. So the net energy consumption is near zero, as a surplus electricity generated by the photovoltaics is going to balance the natural gas use of the furnace. So using the existing structure reduces the need for new materials and of course land. So what I mentioned about resource efficiency, I mean, that contributes hugely to that. And the materials that are still in good condition, of course, can be reused. And the energy upgrades to existing homes can reduce the overall embodied energy of a home. So this is just a couple of photos when they had dug around. They insulated, they waterproofed, then they insulated on the outside. And this is just another photo of the exterior retrofit being installed. If you look at the bottom of this photo here, I'm going to point it down here. You can see it had been insulated, and because of the thickness, they were able to also take the advantage of actually building an additional sort of a space frame, double wall type of exterior to the home, where the system is actually put directly over top of where it meets it up to the exterior insulation. Not a lot of thermal break into there, or just a very little break just out of the plywood. But as you can tell here, is that with the space between the studs here, it actually allows for a thermal break. So that was the thickness of the insulation, then the thickness of the wall. Now they blow in the foam insulation, so it acts as a vapor barrier, it acts as, of course, an insulator, and also acts as an air seal at the same time. So it super minimizes the amount of air leakage that'll occur. And then they also strapped right over top of the roof, so they put some rafters over top of the existing deck, and then they insulated that as well. So now the entire envelope has been completely done, from underneath the slab all the way around. And at the same time, they put a new kitchen in for the fella. So when we're looking at the actual annual energy profile on this, we look at the energy used here again, comparing on national energy consumption on an average, what the average R2000 is, what the Now House is when it comes down to energy consumption. So starting at the very far left, down there, that is what you'll see for space heating for the national average home. And then you're looking at, that would be the dark colored one, that's the national average. And this is basically space heating now for the Now House. And then as we go along, we get water heating and appliances, and then space cooling. So that's the that's energy consumption. But now if you look on this side of the line, now this is on the annual renewable energy. So the grid connected to solar photovoltaics is producing this. And then we also have hot water solar. And then there's also the gray water heat recovery I mentioned earlier. So now if you look at this little box here, national total energy profile, and then we have the R2000, and now this is the Now House, but the only one of them all that has renewable energy is the Now House, so it's producing this, and in the end it comes out to almost a flat line. Now that sweet spot of that flat line, that's where everybody really wants to try to achieve. If you get it over top of that, even better, because then now you've got net zero plus. So this is what it looks like on the south side, of course. Photovoltaics and hot water, and what it looks like in the front. I mentioned earlier if I had time I'd talk a little bit about what's going on in the north. Now they weren't able to get any equilibrium projects built in the north. However, our researchers have been working closely with a lot of the communities up there to come up with solutions to their problems, of course, of healthy housing, a lot of issues with indoor air quality, asthma, people being sick in unhealthy houses, and also super cold and again energy pigs, and the cost of fuel for heating up there is extremely expensive. So they have to come up with some other answers. So if they're going to build new construction, what do they need to do? What actually the Yukon Housing, especially even taking advantage of visiting some of the equilibrium projects and having fantastic staff, and I guess one of the things that really helps a lot is being able to quickly adapt to some of these new concepts without having too much resistance from government and locals and so on. They've decided that this will be a design in which they're going to incorporate and they're going to raise the bar to this standard, and they call this their super green home. And I think honestly they're probably one of the most advanced in the country, I have to admit. And of course in that area, I mean, when you're looking at most of the homes being heated with oil, they have to have different, they need an answer to their problems, because people are spending sometimes $1,500, $2,000 a month in the cold winter times. And they just can't afford. When you look at housing affordability, I mean, that is atrocious. So what they've done here with their super green home, they've adopted the double wall construction. I think they've even gone beyond that. They did an excellent job with this. When you look at a floor design on this one, right in the far end, hopefully you can see that from back there, what it is the floor joist system actually sits on the inside of the basement wall section. Now this is a pressure treated foundation in this one, and on a crawl space. So this could be done either in a basement or a crawl space design, depending upon how far down you want to go. But what happens is that the floor joist sits on the top of the interior partition, and what it allows is for your installation to continue all the way through. So you have now a nice complete blanket, because this is a really bad area for air leakage in these areas. Leave me back, sorry. Pushing the wrong area. In that whole area where your floor joist goes all the way through to the outside. So if you can actually button that up, and there's no option for any air leakage in that area, and they blow in cellulose insulation right from the bottom all the way up. And so it's basically, it works really well. So it's a balloon style cellulose insulated blanket that wraps completely around the exterior, the inside walls and the floors. But not cellulose in the floors, of course. It utilizes a setting replacement designed to self-fill settlement voids in the blown-in wall insulation. Eliminates most of the thermal transfer or the heat loss through the framing materials at the bridge between the warm and the cold surface of the wall. So it's really comfortable. It reduces the air leakage through the wall, the ceiling, also in the floor junctions. It's really quiet. It reduces outside noise transfer. It's very economical, so pre-manufactured wall studs provide quicker framing than the other double wall designs. So the floor systems are actually, floor systems and the above ground systems are all pre-manufactured. And so it goes really quickly, and it works well. Oops. We've also done other projects too in the north, in Arviat and Kaluit and many others. And some of the processes that CMHC's done is just to not walk into communities and say, oh, we're just going to build this whether you like it or not. Too many houses on First Nations, for example, has been pretty much just front-end loaded over the years, and we want to ensure though that whatever is going to be built is going to be built right, and not only for them, but I mean, the idea is for the community and respecting the community, what they want, and also to respect our culture. And what we've done is we hosted design charrettes in the community and had elders, children, everybody, and all the decision makers, all of the charrettes, and to help with the process of what do they want to see in their housing. And I don't have any slides of this, but it's really kind of interesting. I'm just going to quickly tell the story. Is that when we had them come in, it was really interesting because the women said, we really want a nice place that we can actually do some of our sewing and work with the skins. And of course, you know, the guys wanted someplace that they can actually do their butchering and skinning their seals and working on their furs. But on the other hand, though, too, is that most of their clothing for outside is sealskin, and you can't store that indoors. The skin will rot and the fur will fall off. It needs to be placed in cool storage areas. So what they came up with is actually, when you walk into the house, first of all, you come into sort of a vestibule area. It has a windbreak, because of course you get tons of winds up there. And as you walk in, there's a cold area where on one side it's sort of a setup where they can actually do their skinning and their butchering right there in the house. But it's actually not part of the house, sorry, because you have to walk into another door and then you're actually right into the house part of it. But at least the ladies there, they have a sink and they have areas that they can do their sewing. So it's their shop. Also the guys kind of have their shop. And it's not extremely huge. But instead of bringing this right into their living room like they ended up having to do and causing all kinds of problems, they actually have sort of their little designated work areas, which work really well. When you walk into the house, it's a big open area. And the bedroom doors are actually just opening straight into the living area. Because the way they live is they like the idea of everybody being all together in one room. So in respecting all of that, they can eat, they can, out of the kitchen, most times they actually sit right in the middle and eat. They were putting just cardboard on the floor and putting their food down and then just sitting in a circle eating away. And so they allowed a big area for everyone to actually meet and eat. Of course, with technology going on today, who's without internet? Who's without using computers? Well, instead of children going off and hiding into their bedrooms with computers, they actually have like a little area, and so that they could work on their computers, but still be part of the social mix within the house, within the family. They felt hallways are just a waste of floor space. Why bother with hallways? That just takes an extra 3.5 feet of your floor space. So this way here, they eliminated the hallways altogether. They were happy with that. And I think it was in Iqaluit, yeah, where ships only come in at certain times of the year. Otherwise, or no, I think it was in Arviat, where the ships come in only at certain times of the year, where they can only purchase certain types of foods, canned product, and everything else. So can you imagine? We have it so good where you can go to the store, once a week. You can do all your major shopping and so on, and you come home and you consume your goods, and you keep doing that on a weekly, bi-weekly basis or daily basis, whichever you choose. But they don't have much choice. They basically will end up doing their major shopping once a year. Well, guess what? They need their own little storage area. So they need a storage area in their places that they can actually put their cans of food and other types of perishables, I guess, and store that, because it's going to take a long time before they can do some more shopping. So they needed an extra space for that. And of course, you look at building design, building it right, building it with passive solar, and using these advantages of some of the technologies that we're all learning from here, incorporating that in there. We're able to come up with some neat, really great design that community folks just love, and it's been working really, really well. So on that note, though, something I want to mention, I know it has nothing to do so much with energy efficiency, but it is something, when you're looking at affordability, that we would like to ensure that we try to incorporate in the floor plans and the design of the homes. And what that is, we call it flex housing, and it's just a CMHC trademark. However, out there you can call it universal design. The very small portion of this is basically being, recognized through visitability, but that's very limited. So I just want to quickly touch base on some of the features of what we like to see and incorporated when you're looking at accessibility and incorporating these floor plans. Some builders will actually specify that this subdivision or community developers actually incorporate that in the requirements for builders to try to best design their homes using some of these features. And for example, this one here, if you look at the very top, you see accessibility of a sort of a level threshold. Now, this is good from stroller to the roller at the end, you know, in case you're in a wheelchair eventually. So it doesn't really matter in the end. You can have the integrity of living in your home as long as you possibly can. We know when we're looking at about aging in place, this is really important. And if the homes are not designed this way, then guess what? Communities now are responsible then, and not responsible, but they're struggling in the end to try to come up with other alternative housing types for aging seniors. And of course, we know where that's going to look like in another 20 years from now. We're not hiding the fact that all of us are getting a little older, and we have fantastic, wonderful students here that are going to look after all of us. Once we're all going to be needing wheelchairs and stuff like that. But but the idea though is that if you actually build your house right and you incorporate some of these ideas, you're not going to have to spend all this money to put in these big ugly ramps, and they cost a lot of money. So if for instance, you know, going back to community design, that if you're going to go in an area subdivision, that the designers take into consideration all the different slopes that you're going to need for proper surface drainage, of course, but also to allow that the landscaping can actually slope it towards the level of your threshold. So they're not ugly, so it looks natural. Your sidewalk actually goes right level to your doorstep. It's all part of planning, and then understanding these design features, that these things should, and I say they must be incorporated in a floor design. Trevor could probably touch a little bit on that in your own, because he did a fantastic job with that idea. Accessible switches and outlets. Now we see a little guy. Well, that's great for the little guy. But then the thing is, imagine yourself in a wheelchair having to reach way up to adjust the temperature in your home, or reach for switches. Actually, what we say is, you know, lower the switches, raise the plugs, even the windows, if they're down a little lower, so that way you can easily reach the mechanics of the window for operability. Lever type door handles, not only entrance doors, interior doors, your closet doors, your cabinet doors, using more of a D-type handle instead of these little round things where eventually you have a hard time grabbing onto. And also in the walls, you'll see that before you drywall, it's easy enough to put some plywood backing or just knock in some 2x4 backing, where eventually you'll need some good reinforcing for putting on grab bars and so on. Right at the time in the planning and putting this in really doesn't cost hardly any money. But then if you're needing later on down the road to go and rip open the walls to put in your backing, because now you need some reinforcing to put in your grab bars, that's going to cost a lot more money. So if you think ahead, you put these in, it really doesn't add a lot of money to that. This is just an example of a kitchen, where you'll see where the stove area is. It's hollow underneath there. Well, I mean, we're not trying to say the house should be designed to look like a hospital, but in this case here, they could actually design it in such a way where there's doors that go underneath that the stove area, and you don't need to have like an entire box. That countertop goes right over the top of that whole area, where you can open those doors and you can slide a wheelchair underneath there. But it's a lot easier to keep clean, because usually what happens when what's usually underneath, say a kitchen sink or stove, or well, not really stove, but a kitchen sink area, you mostly keep your garbage in there. You keep all your cleaning chemicals and all that other stinky stuff into there. So if you look at the oven, actually it's not that easy to find, but I think it's a smart idea. Is the door? Look at the way it opens. So imagine yourself in a wheelchair on a conventional oven, having to reach over. It's already tough enough as it is as a person that's willing and able that you can do so, but to reach over top of a hot oven door. But this way here, they pull out the little shelf, pull out your roast, open it up, you put it on that shelf, baste your roast, put it back in, safe, easy. So you're going to look at some of these different features. There's tons of other features, and here again you get more information on our website about that. I'm just touching on a few things, but we're looking at adaptability as well. In this case over here, you'll see that you have a washer and dryer in your sort of main washroom area or your mudroom area. However, later on, if you want to convert that to a roll-in shower, well, you can relocate your washer and dryer easy enough. And then this already has it built into the floor drain, and now you already have your hot and your cold water running into there, and your drain is in the floor. So you can actually set this up as a roll-in shower, easy. What does it cost? Otherwise, if you didn't do this, you'd be into the thousands of dollars to modify your home later on down the road. But here again, it's easy. You're looking at a room space. Right now, for instance, you see on this photo, is that you have like a little office space, and you also have a bedroom. I'll show you this other one. This could be the other way. You can have this big office space, and go the other way. They say, well, if you had an extra child, and you say, hey, I need another bedroom. The way you've already pre-designed it is, of course, we know by the code you need a means of egress, so you have your window placements and your plug placements and everything else. Well, in this case here, if you want to split this up into 2 rooms, all you got to do is just basically put in a frame in between, drywall it, and that's it. You've already met your means of egress, you've already met your power, and you actually have already in one area before you drywall it, roughed in a rough opening for a door. So now all you got to do is just take your keyhole saw, cut out the hole for your drywall, and you already have your rough opening, and pop in your door, and Bob's your uncle. You got your room, and that's it. And so if you think about these things and incorporate that in your floor plans, away you go. We're looking at a few different types of flex houses that were built, and there's no limit. By adding granny suites and so on, of course, you got to ensure that everything complies to the zoning bylaws. But we're looking at even in apartments, like this is University Flex condos in Burnaby, BC. They took 2 units into one. They made different types of units. This one here is sort of in Edmonton. It's a flex condo, so 2 units in one. But what they've done is they sort of share the space of living and kitchen. This was a slide that I actually thought I'd add in regards to cost feasibility. This is I was able to get this from Jurgen Korn from Yukon Housing, and just to kind of show about how they calculate the affordability factor of these units. Because the big challenge is to say, well, it's nice to say I'm going to build an equilibrium house, but it's going to cost too much money. Well, what they were able to do here is to show, if you look at number 1, that is just the standard construction house, and then you have the standard enhanced house 2x6 or 2x3 framing. Then you have the green home, which is more like an Arcturus 2000 sort of, and then after that there's the super green home. And if you look at this line right here, this is your base cost. This is how much more it costs than a conventional home. And in the bottom line here, it shows here $24,000. So it costs them roughly $24,000 more to build a super green home. Think about this. You don't need all that extra floor space for all the big heat plants anymore, because what they're doing is they're basically using just electric baseboard heat, and they don't need lots of it. And of course, every one of them will have an HRV. But to thicken the walls, to add the insulation, the heat system is not as elaborate as needed, so you save some money in that end. So it's $24,000. And then now if you look at what your yearly heating load. In this corner, this too much of an angle. In this column here, you're looking at, say, over $3,000 in yearly heating costs and fuel costs. And then, and by the time you're done here, it's $651 of the super green home. So if you basically look at averaging this thing out, when you look at your principal and your interest and your mortgage, on that yellow column, you'll see from $240,000 at the top down to $264,000. And so your principal and interest on that loan, I think I have it on the next slide here, sorry. There we go. In this column, you'll see the principal and interest is from $1,333. It goes up to $1,466. And you say, well, wait a minute now, that's not any cheaper, that's more money. However, if you basically look at what the net payments are after you've actually calculated your energy, it's actually $74 less to live in a super green home than it is in a conventional home. So it makes financial sense. You can do it. And the thing is that they did not necessarily go with all kinds of photovoltaics and solar hot water. They didn't add all that. What they really concentrated on is a really good, super tight building envelope, and also taking advantage of passive solar energy. And that's basically keeping it simple. And it's solar ready if they need to. So that's pretty much it for my presentation. I think I got about 2 minutes here if I have any questions. And I already have an arm out there. Yes?
I'm glad you ended up with a cost comparison question, because that's what I wanted to raise. Great presentation. The Now House, we probably got at least 100, maybe closer to 200 four-time houses. And so the cost comparison in terms of per square foot, because it's a smaller house, between that house and the demonstration houses that we built, what's the construction cost comparison, retrofit versus starting?
It's a good question, and I don't have the actual figures, but what I could say right now is I think by the time they were said and done with doing the retrofit of the house, I think it came in closer to around $80,000 or $85,000. Now it sounds like a fair chunk of change, just considering it's retrofitting an existing house, but this house will now last many more years, probably longer than the 60 years it's already lived, and it'll go on, and you look at the long-term operational costs. So I know I don't have the answer to the actual figure on, like this one here, as to what your PIT will be at the end, but you know, what's the average housing cost? And if you put in $80,000 into the home, you're definitely going to be recovering that. Yeah, I mean, it'll take a little longer, but if you tag on $80,000 to say, like, what's the average? What would you say the average cost of one of those houses on the market right now? The way they sit. Yeah. About 120. Well, 220. Okay, so 220, and let's just say, you know, comes down at $300,000 total cost by including that in. You know, I mean, over a 25-year period, you're definitely going to get all your costs back, and you're going to be living in a much healthier and more comfortable home. Yes.
Four times anywhere from 140 to 160.
In there?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Question about the Now House as well. I heard a story in a previous presentation about they had to change the wall system in front of the house due to some regulations. Do you know anything about that?
To what type of regulations, sir?
I heard there was some building setback regulations, and the city of Toronto wouldn't let them build out from the house. Is that? Do you know anything about that?
No, sorry, I don't know. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Are you answering him, or are you?
No, for you there. I'll get Philip in a second, but I think Philip might have some to say about that. But go ahead. Yes.
With these houses, is there always some form of air exchange involved? Because you're building such a tight house.
Yeah.
My concern would be in that you might end up with sick air syndrome.
Oh, absolutely. That's a very good question, a very good concern. As I mentioned, like every one of these all have an HRV. They all have a heat recovery ventilator system, and they will definitely not work if you don't have them. It's a critical point. I mean, you just cannot expect to be building a super airtight envelope and putting people in a plastic bubble and expecting them to survive. It's not going to happen. I mean, you will definitely have a lot of mold issues and so on. You have to have good fresh air in. You also have to have the warm, moist, still air exhausting. It's critical. And the only efficient way of doing so is by using a heat recovery ventilator. To add to that, I didn't mention it, but the urban ecology project in Winnipeg, they thought they'd even try something a little different. They actually put in 2 HRVs in running in sync to each other. And so the idea is the first HRV is running at a little over 75% efficient. Right? That's the way it's working. And they basically figured that once they add the second HRV, it's going to take 75% efficiency of the 75% efficiency of the first unit, So in the end, it should be coming, their calculation is roughly about 95% efficient by running 2 HRVs in line. So that's another thing that we're actually learning on. We'll find out how that's going to turn out. But this way here, you're still going to be able to recover most of that heat going out by, and still bringing in some good fresh air circulated through the house. At the same time, it's exhausting. So this way here, we won't have any mold issues. We're going to have some good fresh air throughout the house. Philip.
I just trying to respond to this gentleman's question because I came from Toronto. I also live in small house myself. They do have a single requirement for setback, especially on the side, doing a small lot plan. But I think you can go through a variance application, and if you have support from the community, most likely you will get it because it was kind of precondition. You're doing something good for the community. So my personal experience is that, well, in Toronto, those houses would easily cost $400,000 in the real estate market compared to here. So there's a differential. So, but still, it's important to work out the business plan and make sure you can kind of have a reasonable payback period before you jump into that direction.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Have you done any that are based on geothermal heat?
The Chess home in Red Deer is on geothermal. However, I haven't got any data yet from that. I have to maybe add in a little comment on that one, though, is that I know we just did another workshop similar to this at the University of Manitoba just on Tuesday. And some of the designers that we were involved in the Riverdale project, also in the Winnipeg project, both agree to the fact that you say you look at the economies on whether or not these things are really worth installing. And what we're really already seeing, without waiting for the final report of everything, is when does it actually come to a point where it's actually effectively going to operate? Well, not effectively operate, but when is it actually going to be financially feasible for this? Because if you look at how much energy, if you build it right and you build a good building envelope, you take advantage of passive solar energy, it's good and tight, you really don't need a lot of energy to heat these houses. You really don't. So although geothermal sounds like a really nice sexy word out there, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's really feasible. It works. I mean, they work well for heating and cooling, but it's like if you want to take one of these homes that are out there, like the big mansions, say, oh, I'm going to put in a geothermal system because it's going to be way cheaper than doing a complete retrofit and so on. It's like feeding a Hummer. The thing is that. That might be a quick, easy fix for these big leaky sieves, just to pump in more cheap energy to keep them, heated. But the thing is that when you're going to be building a brand new house that's really going to hardly need much of a heat plant whatsoever, when it's going to cost you $20,000 or $30,000 for a system like that, sometimes it just really doesn't make any sense. They are great; they do work well, but you got to ask yourself, if you're willing to do so as a homeowner and you want to put that in. Go for it, but if you're really looking at the bottom line, it probably wouldn't be really that feasible for only a single unit.
And so would it make sense for an entire subdivision?
That is difficult to tell. Geothermal, if you're based in Moose Jaw, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure you probably have done the studies of what you already have. You have a gold mine sitting under that ground right now. You have a gold mine sitting in the ground.
I don't have to say any more because that was what I wanted you to say.
Oh.
Okay, you just stop on that for
Okay, before I put my foot in my mouth, I'll stop right there. I just, when I first heard of this, and I'm staying over at the Temple Gardens, and before even coming here, I had to go see, smell, feel that spa. And it's awesome, and I'm going, man, I wish I had this in my community. It really, it's amazing, and I strongly believe that you have to take advantage on that end of it. What's it costing? It's you must, and we'll continue to reinforce that as we go through. And that's another great reason why, you know, we got Philip to come in from Toronto, even talk about what they have out there to look at how we can encourage you guys to carry on with that thought and that dream and make it happen. Yes.
Red Deer gets a lot of hail. How do your PV panels stand up to the hail?
I'm sorry, the what?
Red Deer gets a lot of hail. How do your photovoltaic panels stand up to hail?
Extremely well. I don't have all the figures, but actually that was a question that was asked to Gordon Howell, which is the PV expert of the Riverdale project. And well, when they manufacture these photovoltaic panels, it has to withstand huge tests. And I think what it was that they use, don't quote me on this, but they use metal like ball bearings that are shot at them like 50 kilometers an hour or something like this, just to ensure that these things will withstand all that, like the weight and the power and the impact. So they do go through substantial tests, and they have to be very strong. So I don't think there'd be any problems, from what I understand. Yes.
Curious how much more a homeowner, a prospective homeowner, would pay for a house. I'll turn it around. From a builder's perspective or a developer's perspective, they want to put a box up that they're going to sell. How much more is the average consumer prepared to pay to buy a standard built home now versus a home with many more of these features? How attractive is it? Yeah, it maybe doesn't make economic sense up front, but there's a certain amount of the population is interested in moving this way regardless.
You're right, and I can't answer the question how much more they're willing to pay, but I can tell you that they're very interested in it. Before we even started this whole thing, it used to be called Net Zero Healthy Housing before we came up with the name of Equilibrium. Before we got everything started, we did focus group surveys right across Canada, from the north and right across Canada, to determine just exactly what the marketability would be, these in different aspects. And sort of to cut to the chase, people were really interested in this. And because of environmental advantages, but also in comfort and health, in comparison to what's out there, and if they have the choices, they're willing to pay more money. And now, and of course, the big obstacle was, like, oh, it's going to cost more. Well, here again, if you look at R2000, and that started back in the early 80s, well, one of their biggest challenges were to convince people to increase the insulation, to make it more airtight. What are we saying today? You know, it's taken so many years for R2000 to almost become a household name. It's taken forever, a long time, way too long. We're at a crunch right now. We're at a crunch that the energy is going up, and it's not only going up today, it's going to continue to go up. And we got to make those changes. And the thing is they're at this point in time, they realize that we want to be comfortable, and we want to also save some money over in the future. So if they could see the light, and consumers are a lot more intelligent these days. They're really catching on to where we're going at with housing. That they are a lot more willing today than they have been, 20, 25 years ago, to grasp the whole idea of what we're really going at with this. So, for instance, I'd like to redevelop a new slide of our own once we get more data instead of using Yukon Housings. I really appreciate Jürgen Korn's spreadsheet. But we will still be able to come up and say, look, at the end, if you did this is what it's going to cost. It's going back to the question of geothermal. Now, geothermal, you have it here in the ground; it's already heated. You don't have to use up any energy except for pumping it, pushing it. If you're going to be doing geothermal in a house, a single-family house all by itself, by using a well system, or if it's going to be ground loop system, whichever system, costs a lot of money. So you say, well, how can you make that affordable? Well, maybe if you really want to push that system, maybe you might want to do small cluster. Maybe 3, 4, 5, or 6 houses can share that system, because there's no reason why it can't. But that adds a lot more. So where do you find that sweet spot in costs? So when the homes are being designed, there is a formula that you can use to determine how far you're going to go. How far are you going to go with insulation before it comes to the point of no return? How far are you going to go with all these costs added into it before it comes to the point of no return? So you build your house to that specification, and get a full maximum return on your investment. And this way here, the homeowner will be able to say, well, I don't mind spending extra $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. And then, believe me, and somebody tells, of course, it's more than that. Yukon Housing was actually able to find that sweet spot in their design to say, yeah, $24,000 for that specific model, and that's where they stop. So the builders have got to look beyond and just say, well, I'm going to build it a little bit thicker, and I think that's going to work. You don't have to think. You can actually calculate it based on measurements and construct in such a way that you can price it so that it will be marketable.
We better stop you there.
Yeah.
The after is supposed to start in 1 minute.
Yeah, I know. Okay, guys. Let's have a 10-minute coffee break then, and we'll get back here. Thank you. Thanks for stopping.